What's going on, everybody? It's Gary with Highway Therapy, and I'm out here in the driveway today doing a little bit of preventative maintenance on the camper. You know, it's wintertime, it's getting colder out there, and if you've got any kind of an RV, travel trailer, fifth wheel, whatever, that you keep parked in the driveway in the wintertime, you need to take a little bit of extra caution to make sure that it doesn't freeze up on you. So today I'm going to show you just how easy it is to winterize your camper.
Just all the way to the rainbow's end. Just
So I picked a great day to do this. It's pouring the rain out there, but fortunately I got a built-in umbrella on the side of this thing, so I should be okay. So what are we talking about when we say we're going to winterize the camper? Well, if you leave it parked for any amount of time in the winter and it gets really cold where you're at, the few things you need to be careful of. One is your batteries. If you don't leave it plugged in all the time like I do, you need to get some kind of a battery tender just to make sure that those batteries stay topped off when you're not using them. Otherwise you'll have dead batteries in the springtime. But the big thing to look out for is your plumbing. If it gets below freezing outside and you've got any kind of water in those lines, it could rupture the pipes, and you don't want that to happen. So there's a couple ways of dealing with that. One is to just get all the air out. They make little fittings that you can hook up an air compressor and just blow all the water out of the lines. I mean, that's one way to do it, but my preferred method is to replace that water with something else, and that's why I like to use this RV antifreeze. This stuff is not the same as what you would put in your vehicle. This stuff's specially made for RVs, boats, things like that. You can pick this up at, in any RV store, but you can also get it at Walmart, most auto parts stores. Plenty of sources for it. It's not that expensive, and usually only takes 2 or 3 gallons to do most RVs. I found that a couple gallons works great for me. So let's go ahead and go through the steps that you need to take in order to get all the water out of your system and replace it with this antifreeze. Now, the first thing I like to do is to drain the hot water heater. You don't want to put antifreeze in the hot water heater, but there's an easy way to make sure that all the water is out of that. Step one in doing that, before you start working on the hot water heater, make sure there's no hot water in it. Now, if you just got back from a camping trip, make sure your hot water heater's off. Ideally, let it sit overnight, and then that'll let the water in there cool down. And then the next day, test that water, make sure it's good and cold. For the next step, you want to come outside and locate the access panel for your hot water heater. This is where the built-in umbrella comes in handy, because the rain just kicked in even harder, and so did the heater. So hope you can hear me okay. Locate this panel and go ahead and open it up. And behind here, you're going to find this little pressure relief valve. I'm going to try to do this without soaking me or you. So these water heaters tend to build up pressure on the inside of them, and if you go into the next step without relieving that pressure first, it's going to make a mess. Next step down here on the bottom is where you're going to find your anode. This is what keeps all the gunk out of the tank, keeps it from corroding. In order to get that off, you're going to need a 1 1/16" socket. One socket that I didn't have in my toolbox already, so I had to run down to the hardware store and get one. It's a good thing to keep in the camper just in case. So go ahead and remove that. And keep in mind that all the water in the water heater is behind this plug, so when you take it out, it's going to make a mess. Once you get it broke loose, you can start turning it. And it could take 2 or 3 minutes for all that to drain out, so just sit back, let it do its thing. Now's a good time to inspect your anode too. Again, this is what keeps the corrosion out of your hot water heater. You'll find these in your home hot water heaters too. This one's not looking too bad. It's starting to get a little funky up here. The rest of it's got a few little pits in it, but this one's still got some life left in it, so I'm going to go ahead and put it back in for now. And normally when you put this back in, you want to replace this Teflon tape, but I can't find any, so I'm going to do that later. You just have to take my word for it. You see there's no more water coming out, so it tells me that the tank's empty. Just go ahead and put the rod back in. Come on. Seriously. Get in there. Put up a fight. Last but not least, don't forget to close your pressure relief valve. All right, let's go back inside. Another thing I want to mention too is that you want to make sure that all of your tanks are empty as well. You know, your black tank, your gray tank, your freshwater tank. If it's parked in your driveway, most people don't have a way to drain those tanks. So just make sure when you're on your last camping trip of the season and you know you're getting ready to park it and winterize it, go ahead and thoroughly drain those tanks out while you're there, even the freshwater tank, because you don't want anything in those when you're winterizing. All right, next step is to make sure that we've got all the water out of the lines on the inside. So I like to just go ahead and kick on the faucets, hot side, cold side, and everything, and let them run for a minute and make sure nothing comes out. And do this for every faucet in the camper. Kitchen, bathroom. If you have one of those little sprayers on the outside where you can wash the dog or clean your feet off, make sure you get that one too. And don't forget the toilet. Okay, now that we got those emptied, there's one more place that the water can come out. Let me take you to the back of the camper and I'll show you where that's at. Okay, I'm gonna get wet. Oh yeah, there we go. So back here is where you're gonna find your low point drains. I like to leave the faucets open on the inside whenever I do these. That way you're not creating a vacuum and all the water can come out of the bottom. Or you definitely don't want to leave water in these because these are on the out. Oops. You definitely don't want to leave water in these because these are exposed to the elements and they're gonna freeze up first. Just twist these little caps loose. Most of the ones I've seen have these little caps. All you have to do is loosen up the connection and these caps pop right out. You can see just how much is coming out of that. Definitely not something you want sitting out here in the freezing cold. All right, once those are done, make sure you put the caps back in, otherwise you're gonna make a mess on the next step. Oh yeah, good and wet out here now. And cold. Okay, so now it's time to fill the lines up with antifreeze. First thing that you want to do, remember I said you don't want to get antifreeze in your hot water heater, so you need to locate your hot water heater in the inside of the camper. Mine happens to be underneath the sink, yours might be in a different spot. Wherever you were at on the outside when you drain the tank, it's going to be on the inside wall, obviously. So since mine's under the sink, I'm going to go ahead and open this up and get access to the back of the water heater. And you might run into something like this where you've got a little panel covering things up in there, just so you can, you know, put pots, pans, whatever in there without getting into the plumbing. Just go ahead and pull that out. This one had a screw in it, but this is the third time I've winterized this thing since October, so I just left it out. Okay, so inside here you can see we've got our hot water heater right here. You can tell because it's covered in styrofoam. You got your water pump back there, and you got this whole network of hoses running through here. These little valves right here are what we're going to be working with. That's going to give us the ability to bypass the hot water heater and also to activate this hose, which is what we're going to use to get the antifreeze in the system. Now, if you don't have one of these hoses already connected, this camper came with it from the factory, but you can purchase a kit that will just tap into your plumbing right there and allow you to do this. Actually, I think I'm going to switch to the GoPro just to give you guys a little bit better view. Hopefully this gives you a little bit better idea of how everything's plumbed up down here. So whenever you hook up to city water, it pressurizes these lines. You've got these lines running to every faucet in the camper. Hot water and cold water both get pressurized when you hook up to city. So if you're in a situation where you're not running off city water, you're going to be running off your freshwater tank. And this is the hose that goes to your freshwater tank. That runs down into the pump, So whenever you flip the switch up there to turn the pump on, it's pulling out the freshwater tank, and that's what's pressurizing all these lines instead of the city water. So what we're going to do in this case, we're going to use that pump to fill this thing up with antifreeze. First step is to bypass your hot water heater. Now, if you can see right here, you got these 3 valves. You got the cold side coming in, you got the hot side coming out, and then you got the bypass valve. So what we want to do, go ahead and shut off the cold side. And then shut off the hot side. And now we open the bypass valve. There we go. So now, whenever we pressurize these lines, the water is going to come in here, it's going to hit that valve, shoot through the bypass, and go back out the hot side instead of filling up our water heater, which we just spent all that time emptying. Now over here you got the valve that comes from the freshwater tank. So right now that's closed. This is the line coming off of our open end of the hose. That's closed as well. Okay, if we wanted to use the water from the freshwater tank, we'd open that up and then turn on the pump, and it would pull out of that tank. But instead of using that tank, we want to use our gallon jugs of antifreeze. So what I'm going to do is stick this end of the pipe into the jug, then I'll open up this valve, turn on the pump, and start filling all these lines with antifreeze. There we go. Before you turn your pump on, make sure that hose is all the way down in the bottom of the antifreeze jug, because you don't want it running dry. It could damage the pump. And then go ahead and shut off all your faucets. We're going to do them one by one. Flip that pump on, turn on the faucet. Once you get a solid stream, do the other side. You can already see how much it's pulling. Go in the bathroom, do the same thing. Solid stream, solid stream, shower, you'll see solid pink running down the wall, and then finally, solid pink in the toilet. As you can see, that drained a gallon pretty dang quick. So if you've got a bigger camper, it might help you to have somebody to keep an eye on that jug just to make sure. And again, if you have an outdoor shower, you want to go out there and do the same thing with that. Run it just for a minute, make sure all that pink is coming out of there. That way you know that line is completely full of antifreeze. So now we'll go ahead and shut the pump off. I'm going to go ahead and shut off this valve just to close off this hose. Let me go ahead and pull that out. You probably want to get a towel or something whenever you take this thing out, because it's going to be covered in antifreeze. I'm not that smart. Oh, see? I'll be right back. So once you're confident that all your lines are full of antifreeze, you want to go ahead and take your leftovers and just pour them down the drain. Reason for doing that is you want to make sure there's no water sitting in the P-traps that can freeze. And we'll do the same in the bathroom. And in the tub. Okay. And again, if you've got an outdoor shower, you really don't have to worry about that step. But if you have an outdoor kitchen with a sink, make sure you pour a little bit down that drain as well. And that's it. That's all there is to it. It takes about 10 minutes to fully winterize your camper. Easy process. And it's cheap insurance. It cost me, I think, less than $20 to do that. So if you found this video helpful, please let me know by going down there and hitting that like button. And if you're new to the channel, we don't always do how-to videos. This is our first camper. We spent the past year traveling all over the country in this thing. We learned a lot in the process. So I'll leave a link to the playlist for season 1 here. And season 2 is getting ready to kick off. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and stick around for that. It's gonna be a great adventure. I can't wait. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on the highway. Yeah, I'm standing here acting like I'm getting ready to go run back in the house through the, I'm going back in the camper. This is nasty. It's cold out here too, and I left my dang hoodie.